Hello and welcome on Watches TV, and today we have something totally special and unique to share with you, one of those amazing projects that happen only once in a while. A project 8 years in the making and pushing the limits of hyper-horology, and for sure accentuating the fact that we are most definitely talking about art with a capital A. So we were lucky enough to follow a few stages of this project and are thrilled to bring to you the report of the day, one proving once again how precious the collaboration between a collector, or should I say a patron of the arts, and a brand can be. So enjoy this watchmaking masterpiece.
So first of all, I'd like to say that we are talking about a Les Cabinotier timepiece. Les Cabinotier is the Vacheron Constantin workshop for unique pieces and for bespoke order. And here we are in the case of a bespoke order. So we have a client who is a great collector of fine timepieces, and well, he had a dream asking us to make a unique timepiece, a bespoke timepiece, which would be a grand complication, namely Westminster Carillon, which would include decorative crops. He got in touch with us in 2013, and this is the 8 years long history that we are going to talk about. This is a new movement, and this is a bespoke movement. Our client asked us to add to the movement a very special feature, which is a silence mode, the function on the case, which allows you to remove any kind of chiming between 11 p.m. and 9 a.m. One thing which is important to mention is the fact that this movement was developed by the same team of specialists, master watchmakers and engineers, who have been in charge of the famous reference 57260. So they had already quite a lot of experience about striking watches and the integration of a tourbillon, for example. And for them, I think it was the possibility to go beyond what they made in 2015.
And can you give us a little bit more specificities and details precisely of the chiming mechanism?
So allow me maybe to jump back to the 19th century. So considering Vacheron Constantin, we started to make striking watches at the very beginning of the 19th century, and we started to make grande sonnerie, so really the apex of chiming watches in the 1820s. And the oldest timepiece that we have in our private collection, which is a grande sonnerie, is from 1827. And then later we did some grande sonnerie as well during for famous clients, just to mention James W. Packard or King Fuad of Egypt. And in the case of this unique timepiece, we have Westminster Carillon, which means that this system is playing exactly the same note as the Big Ben Carillon in London. And to do so, it's a very, very complex mechanism, because we have no less than 5 hammers, which is very impressive, and striking on 5 counts, and which are driven by 4 racks. We have very good knowledge about how to adjust properly the case with the movements. So in other words, it's really about hollowing out as much as possible material in the case, in order to give enough space for the air to transfer the sound, and also to offer resonance with the case. So these are a classic know-how for chiming watches that we have since decades, if not centuries, and we have been using the same techniques for this case. So the watch itself is 98 mm wide, which is enormous in comparison with the wristwatch. So the movement had to be, large enough to be fitted with harmonious proportion in the case. So this is no less than 71 millimeter diameter movement, which is 17.05 millimeter thick. This is due to the complexity of the chiming system, to the tourbillon, and of course to the 5 hammers that we need to play the Westminster Carillon. Every component has been hand finished in the great tradition, so hand beveling, hand chamfering. Some surfaces have been polished, some surfaces have been satin finish, and we have Geneva stripes as well on the movement. But maybe what makes this movement particularly interesting as well is the final coating on the movement, which is a galvanic coating of a very beautiful light champagne color. In addition, I can say that this is a movement which counts more than 800 components, 805 to be exact, which is huge. And watches with the more than 800 components are very, very rare. We have 80 hours of power reserve, and we have between 15 and 18 hours of power reserve for the musical seconds. So this is 18,000 vibrations per hour. So we have a 1 minute rotation cage for the tourbillon. And this is, of course, a timepiece, a movement which is certified with the Geneva Hallmark.
Now let's talk about the artistic and aesthetical side of this timepiece, and we'll just decompose this in different things. And let's talk first of the case itself, because I mean that's a work of art.
Yeah, it is. We have acanthus leaves together with tulips, which have been hand engraved on the case side. And our master engraver, she used different techniques to do this work. She has used the champ levé technique to give a depth impression of the engraving, and of course we have polished surfaces. Then she has been using also the fine line technique to underline the contrast, and finally, and I think this is really something which is amazing, she has been using the chiseling technique, so point per point, which gives a very matte background, and I would say enhances the beauty of the engraving. The bow is completely hand decorated by engraving with 2 lion faces. The lions were carved from 2 blocks of gold and entirely handmade. And our Metida workshop made several 3D printings in order to exactly find the good proportions for the lions.
Okay, let's now talk about kind of the clou du spectacle with this incredible enamel painting that we have on the case cover. I mean, I don't think people realize how complex it is to come up with, for instance, such a black surface. Give us a bit more detail.
I think you are pointing on something which is extraordinary. It's the cover of the timepiece. So when our client made its first request, he has been requesting that he wanted a miniature painted enamel on the back of the timepiece, and he wanted us to this job to be made by Anita Porcher, who is a famous independent enameler. And following the discussions with the client, it has been decided to do a reproduction of the girl with the pearl earrings from Johannes Vermeer. So we have to remember that when we are doing enamel dial, for example, in a wristwatch, we have a diameter of, say, 32 millimeter. But here we have 98 millimeter. So that large surface is really, adding a lot of complexity for the enameler. Mrs. Porcher needed no less than 7 months to achieve this masterpiece, and we have there is a lot to say. For example, the background of the painting is very dark; it's almost black, and the color is a combination of 6 different enamel colors. And if we consider, for example, the turban of the girl, she needed no less than 6 weeks to enable this turbine. The depth of field, if I may say. This is due to the very special technique that Mrs. Porcher is using, which is in the great tradition of Geneva enameling. So this is the technique de Genève, the Geneva technique, which is a miniature painting enamel on a gold plate. And at the end of all the firings, she would add a layer of translucent enamel, which will reveal all the colors and give this impression of depth. After each color, the whole cover had to be fired in a kiln, and there is always a risk that something happens, and if something happens, well, the whole cover will be ruined. So I think this is, as far as I can say, or I would say on my point of view, this is really a masterpiece of enameling from the 21st century, no doubt.
If we go on the other side of the timepiece, can you describe us the dial that we have there?
So again, we are going to talk about enameling. So this is another Grand Feu enamel main dial, which has been enameled in a very, very beautiful eggshell color. And we have Roman numerals, which are also enameled on the watch face in blue color. The minute hand is no less than 35 millimeter long, which is just amazing. And these hands are very pure and very beautiful. So this is really, you know, everything is absolutely out of this world when talking about this timepiece.
And a project that lasted more or less 8 years. So you need to have also kind of patient customers. They need to understand this.
I think that we are talking about a masterpiece from both technical and aesthetical aspects. And so to create masterpieces, well, it requires time. And I think that we had the great chance to have with us a very passionate collector who knew exactly what he wanted and was ready to interact with us all along the development. And I think for him it was more a matter of passion rather than a matter of patience. This is thanks to this kind of initiative from our client that we are gaining more and more experience and more know-how in the field of very high complications and very, very high kind of craftsmanship.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this. How spectacular was that? And I sincerely can't thank enough those who have the means and the culture to give the opportunity to some incredible artisans and watchmakers to express themselves on such an ambitious playing field. So bravo to you and congratulations to all that have been involved. Thanks for watching, and more than ever, viva mind-boggling watchmaking! See you real soon.